Strange discoveries under the Amazon rainforest. From high above the earth, the Amazon rainforest looks like a vast, endless ocean of green. The canopy stretches beyond the horizon in every direction, a dense living blanket covering millions of square kilometers. From space, it appears almost uniform, just an uninterrupted sea of trees. But that illusion hides a deeper truth. Beneath this thick layer of vegetation lies one of the least understood landscapes on our planet. The Amazon is the largest rainforest on Earth. It spans 9 countries and covers an area larger than the entire European Union. Its rivers carry more water than the next 7 largest rivers in the world combined. The forest itself is home to millions of species of plants and animals, many of which have never been documented by science. Even today, researchers continue to discover thousands of new species every decade. Yet the Amazon's greatest mysteries may not live in its rivers or its trees. They may be hidden beneath them. For centuries, explorers believed the rainforest was too harsh for large human societies. The soil appeared too poor for farming, the climate too unforgiving, and the dense jungle too difficult to navigate. Early European explorers who ventured into the region returned with stories of scattered tribes and isolated villages. From these accounts, historians formed a widely accepted conclusion. The Amazon had always been a wilderness, a place where large civilizations could never exist. For a long time, no one questioned that belief. But the Amazon is a master of concealment. What appears empty from above is anything but. The forest canopy is so thick that sunlight struggles to reach the ground in many places. Layers of vegetation intertwine into a tangled wall of green, hiding everything below. Ancient roads, stone structures, earthworks, and entire settlements can vanish beneath this living cover. Over time, the jungle slowly consumes whatever lies beneath it. Trees grow through abandoned structures. Roots break apart old walls. Rain and soil bury the rest. After only a few generations, entire cities can disappear without leaving obvious traces behind. This ability of the rainforest to erase history has long made it one of the most difficult places on Earth to study. For decades, archaeologists searching for evidence of ancient civilizations face an impossible challenge. From ground level, the jungle reveals very little. What may look like an ordinary hill could actually be the buried remains of a massive structure. A slight ridge in the terrain might once have been a road built centuries ago. Even when clues exist, they're often hidden under meters of vegetation. But occasionally, the jungle reveals small hints of its secrets. Explorers have sometimes stumbled upon strange shapes rising from the forest floor. Perfectly straight embankments, enormous circular trenches, or mysterious geometric patterns carved into the earth. These formations are too precise to be natural. Their symmetry suggests planning, design, and human intention. The problem is that these discoveries rarely appear in isolation. They're often found in regions so remote that reaching them requires days of travel by boat, followed by long treks through dense forest. Supplies are limited, visibility is poor, and the jungle itself constantly works against researchers, reclaiming whatever they uncover. As a result, many discoveries remain isolated mysteries, disconnected pieces of a puzzle no one could fully see. But the scale of the Amazon raises a haunting possibility. If a few hidden structures have been found by accident, how many more remain buried beneath the forest canopy? To understand the scope of this question, it helps to consider the sheer size of the region. The Amazon rainforest covers roughly 5.5 million square kilometers. Even with modern technology, only a fraction of this vast territory has been explored in detail. Large areas remain so remote that scientists have never conducted systematic archaeological surveys there. In other words, most of the Amazon's past remains invisible, and sometimes the forest itself hints that something far older lies beneath its surface. In certain parts of the jungle, researchers have discovered unusual soil that should not exist naturally in such a wet environment. This soil is dark, rich, and incredibly fertile. Unlike the surrounding earth, which quickly loses nutrients under heavy rainfall, this soil remained productive for centuries. Its presence suggests something extraordinary, that ancient people may have deliberately engineered the land. In other places, satellite images have revealed subtle patterns in the landscape, lines, shapes, and structures that seem almost impossible to detect from the ground. These patterns stretch for kilometers, forming geometric layouts too organized to be the work of nature alone. For a long time, these discoveries seemed like isolated anomalies. But as technology improved and researchers began looking more carefully, a startling idea began to emerge. What if the Amazon was never truly empty? What if the vast rainforest we see today is not just a natural wilderness, but the overgrown remains of a forgotten world? Some scientists now believe that millions of people may have lived here long before European explorers ever arrived. Entire societies could have thrived in regions now covered by dense jungle. Cities, roads, farms, and ceremonial sites may lie hidden beneath layers of vegetation and soil. If that is true, then the Amazon may be hiding one of the largest lost chapters of human history. And only recently have researchers begun to find the first real clues that this hidden past might exist. Because when modern technology started to look beneath the jungle canopy, the forest began to reveal something no one expected. For most of the 20th century, historians and archaeologists agreed on one thing: the Amazon rainforest could never have supported large civilizations. The environment seemed too hostile. The soil appeared too poor for sustained agriculture, and the dense vegetation made transportation and communication nearly impossible. According to this theory, the Amazon had always been sparsely populated, home only to small tribes living in scattered villages along rivers. This idea became so widely accepted that it shaped how scientists approached the entire region. When researchers looked at the vast rainforest, they saw wilderness, not the remains of ancient cities. But this assumption would eventually be challenged in a way no one expected. The first clues appeared gradually, almost by accident. In the late 20th century, satellite images began revealing strange patterns in areas where parts of the forest had been cleared for farming. From the ground, these locations looked ordinary, just open fields surrounded by jungle. But when viewed from above, something unusual became visible. Large geometric shapes were etched into the landscape. Some formed perfect squares or circles. Others appeared as massive rectangles connected by straight lines that stretched for hundreds of meters. The edges were too precise to be natural. Their symmetry suggested planning and construction on a massive scale. At first, many researchers believed these patterns were recent formations, perhaps created by modern land use or natural erosion. But as archaeologists began studying them more closely, it became clear that these structures were far older than anyone expected. Some of them had been hidden beneath the forest for centuries. The implications were startling. If these shapes had been buried under the jungle for hundreds of years, it meant they must have been built before the rainforest reclaimed the land. In other words, long before modern explorers arrived, people had already transformed these landscapes. As more areas of the Amazon were studied, the discoveries multiplied. Hundreds of these geometric earthworks, now known as geoglyphs, were identified across large regions of the western Amazon basin. Many of them were enormous, some stretching over 300 meters across. Deep trenches and raised embankments outlined the shapes, forming precise patterns visible only from above. But the true scale of these discoveries remained unclear. The jungle was still hiding most of the evidence. Then a technological breakthrough changed everything. In recent years, scientists began using a powerful mapping technology known as LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging. Mounted on aircraft, LiDAR systems send millions of laser pulses toward the ground. While most of the beams reflect off the forest canopy, some slip through tiny gaps between the leaves and branches, reaching the surface below. By measuring how the light returns, computers can construct detailed maps of the terrain, even beneath dense vegetation. For archaeologists studying the Amazon, this technology opened a completely new window into the past. When researchers began scanning sections of the rainforest with LiDAR, the results were astonishing. Beneath what appeared to be untouched wilderness, entire landscapes began to emerge. Straight roads appeared where only jungle had been visible before. Large platforms rose from the terrain in geometric patterns. Massive earthworks formed circles, squares, and networks of interconnected structures. What had once seemed like isolated discoveries were now revealed to be part of something far larger. In some regions, the scans uncovered evidence of vast settlement networks, clusters of structures connected by wide causeways that stretched for kilometers through the forest. These were not small villages. Some sites appeared carefully planned, with central plazas, defensive walls, and complex layouts suggesting organized urban design. The jungle had been hiding entire cities. One of the most striking discoveries occurred in parts of Bolivia's Amazon basin, where LiDAR surveys revealed a previously unknown system of ancient settlements spread across hundreds of kilometers. These settlements included large ceremonial platforms, elevated roads, and massive water management systems designed to control seasonal flooding. Some structures rose several meters above the surrounding landscape, forming artificial terraces and platforms that may once have supported buildings or temples. Even more surprising were the roads. Wide, straight causeways connected different settlements, running across wetlands and forests in remarkably direct lines. These were not simple footpaths carved through the jungle. They were engineered routes, built with raised surfaces and carefully shaped edges, suggesting organized planning and coordinated labor. Constructing such networks would have required large populations and sophisticated knowledge of engineering. The discoveries forced scientists to reconsider one of the most fundamental assumptions about the Amazon. What if the rainforest had once supported complex societies with advanced infrastructure? Some researchers now believe that millions of people may have lived throughout the region before European contact. These societies may have developed unique ways to farm the land, manage water resources, and build large settlements within the forest environment. Instead of isolated tribes scattered across the wilderness, the Amazon may once have been home to thriving urban cultures. But if such societies existed, a new mystery emerges. Where did they go? By the time European explorers began traveling through the Amazon in the 16th century, most of these settlements had already vanished. The jungle had reclaimed their roads and buildings. Entire cities had disappeared beneath thick vegetation. Some historians believe disease may have played a role. When Europeans first reached the Americas, they unknowingly carried illnesses like smallpox and influenza, diseases to which indigenous populations had no immunity. These epidemics spread rapidly, often killing large portions of entire communities before Europeans even arrived in certain regions. If complex societies once existed in the Amazon, disease could have caused their sudden collapse. Without people to maintain the land, farms would have been abandoned, roads would have become overgrown, buildings would have fallen into ruin, and the rainforest would slowly erase the rest. Over generations, the forest would grow back, covering everything that remained. Today, only faint traces survive beneath the jungle canopy. Hidden structures, geometric earthworks, and subtle patterns in the terrain. They are fragments of a past that scientists are only beginning to understand. And with every new scan, every new discovery, the same realization grows stronger. The Amazon rainforest may not just be a wilderness. It may be the overgrown remains of one of the most unexpected lost civilizations in human history. Deep within parts of the Amazon basin, hidden for centuries beneath thick layers of forest, lie enormous shapes carved into the earth itself. At ground level, they are almost impossible to recognize. To a person standing beside one, they may look like nothing more than shallow trenches or slightly raised ridges in the soil. But when viewed from above, their true form becomes clear. Perfect geometric patterns emerge from the landscape. Massive squares, precise circles, octagons and rectangles connected by long straight lines. Some of these shapes stretch hundreds of meters across, large enough to cover several football fields. Their edges are sharply defined, their angles remarkably accurate. They appear too organized, too symmetrical to be the work of nature. These formations are known as Amazonian geoglyphs, and they represent one of the most intriguing archaeological mysteries of the rainforest. For centuries, they remain completely hidden. The jungle had grown over them, burying the shapes beneath thick layers of vegetation. Only in recent decades, when parts of the forest were cleared for agriculture and development, did the first of these structures begin to appear. Farmers cutting down trees in remote regions of Brazil's acre state began noticing strange trenches forming unusual patterns in the soil. At first, many people assumed they were natural formations or remnants of recent human activity. But as aerial surveys and satellite images began to examine these areas more closely, researchers realized something extraordinary. These shapes were ancient, and there were far more of them than anyone had imagined. Today, archaeologists have identified hundreds of geoglyphs scattered across the southwestern Amazon, particularly in Brazil and Bolivia. Some consist of single geometric figures carved directly into the earth. Others form complex layouts with multiple shapes connected by straight pathways or long embankments. Each geoglyph typically consists of a wide trench dug into ground, often several meters across and up to 2 meters deep. The soil removed from the trench was piled along the edges, forming raised embankments that clearly define the shapes. The precision of these structures raises an obvious question. How were they built? Creating a geoglyph hundreds of meters wide would have required enormous effort. Workers would have needed to carefully measure distances, maintain straight lines, and dig large trenches using simple tools made from wood, stone, or bone. Even with modern equipment, constructing such structures would require planning and coordination. For ancient societies working without metal tools or advanced technology, the challenge would have been even greater. This suggests something important about the people who built them. These geoglyphs were not created randomly or casually.
In the Amazon,
they were the
massive
result of
geoglyphs
organized
reveal
labor,
an ancient,
careful
organized
planning,
society.
and shared cultural purpose. But the mystery deepens when considering another remarkable feature. Most of these shapes are difficult to recognize from the ground. Standing inside one of these massive circles or squares, a person might not even realize they are inside a geometric structure. The walls are often low, and the trench is shallow enough that the pattern becomes obvious only when seen from above. This has led some researchers to wonder whether the geoglyphs were intended to be viewed from elevated positions, or perhaps symbolically represented something that did not require aerial visibility at all. Comparisons are often made with another famous set of ancient geoglyphs located thousands of kilometers away, the Nazca lines in Peru. Like the Amazonian geoglyphs, the Nazca lines consist of enormous shapes carved into the landscape, figures so large that they can only be fully appreciated from the air. Some depict animals or geometric designs stretching across the desert floor for hundreds of meters. For decades, the purpose of the Nazca lines has remained a mystery. Theories range from religious ceremonies to astronomical alignments. The geoglyph of the Amazon raise similar questions. Why would ancient people carve enormous geometric shapes into the ground in places where they might not be easily visible? Some archaeologists believe the geoglyphs may have served as ceremonial spaces. The wide trenches and raised embankments could have formed boundaries around large gathering areas where rituals, festivals, or communal events took place. Others suggest they may have held symbolic meaning, representing cosmological ideas or sacred geometry connected to belief systems we no longer fully understand. There is also evidence that many geoglyphs were carefully aligned with nearby structures or natural features, suggesting they may have been part of larger settlement networks. In some areas, archaeologists have discovered remains of ancient villages located near the geoglyphs. Pottery fragments, tools, and other artifacts indicate that people once lived in close proximity to these structures. This suggests that the geoglyphs were not isolated monuments, standing alone in the wilderness. They were likely part of thriving communities that existed throughout the region. Another important clue comes from dating the soil layers surrounding the structures. By analyzing charcoal fragments and organic material buried within the trenches, scientists have estimated that many of these geoglyphs were constructed between 500 and 2,000 years ago. This means they were already ancient long before Europeans ever set foot in the Amazon basin. During that time, entire societies must have lived in regions that today appear to be untouched wilderness. But if large communities once thrived here, why did they disappear? As with many ancient mysteries, the answer is not entirely clear. Some researchers believe that environmental changes may have played a role. Others suggest that disease, migration, or social transformations could have gradually caused these societies to decline. Whatever the reason, the rainforest eventually reclaimed the land. Trees grew over abandoned structures. Soil and vegetation slowly buried the trenches. Within generations, the massive geometric shapes vanished beneath the jungle canopy. For centuries, no one knew they existed. Only recently has modern technology allowed scientists to rediscover these enormous designs hidden beneath the forest. And with every new aerial survey, more shapes continue to appear. Each new discovery adds another piece to a puzzle that archaeologists are only beginning to understand. Because the deeper researchers look into the Amazon, the clearer one thing becomes. The rainforest is not simply a natural wilderness. It is a landscape shaped by human hands, one that still hides countless traces of the civilizations that once lived there. And somewhere beneath the endless sea of trees, many more secrets are still waiting to be found. While many of the Amazon's mysteries lie hidden beneath its dense canopy, some may be concealed even deeper, beneath the ground itself. For decades, explorers, geologists, and archaeologists working in remote parts of the Amazon basin have reported something unexpected: enormous underground passages running beneath the forest floor. Some of these tunnels appear to be natural cave systems carved by water over thousands or even millions of years. But others are far more difficult to explain. Their shapes appear strangely deliberate. In several locations across Brazil and neighboring regions, researchers have discovered long subterranean tunnels stretching deep into the earth. These tunnels sometimes extend for hundreds of meters and are wide enough for a person to walk through comfortably. The walls are smooth and curved, and the passageways often branch into multiple directions like the corridors of an underground labyrinth. At first glance, they resemble ordinary caves. But when scientists began studying them more closely, they noticed something unusual. The tunnels often show signs of precise shaping that natural erosion rarely produces. Some passages maintain a remarkably consistent height and width over long distances. Others feature rounded entrances and smooth interior surfaces that almost resemble carved stone. These features raise an intriguing question. Were these tunnels created entirely by natural geological processes, or did something else play a role in shaping them? The mystery first gained widespread attention when researchers discovered a series of enormous underground tunnels in Brazil that seemed far larger than typical animal burrows. Some were more than a meter wide and several meters tall, stretching through layers of compacted soil and rock. The scale alone was puzzling. No known animal currently living in the Amazon is capable of digging tunnels of that size and complexity. Even the largest burrowing mammals in South America, such as armadillos, create tunnels far smaller and less structured than these. For a time, some scientists considered the possibility that ancient humans might have dug them, but this explanation also raised problems. Excavating such extensive underground passages using primitive tools would have required enormous effort and coordination. If humans had constructed them, there should be clear evidence of tool marks, debris piles, or nearby settlements associated with the excavation. Yet many of the tunnels appear in places where no obvious archaeological remains have been found. Eventually, another theory began to gain support. Some paleontologists proposed that the tunnels might have been created by giant prehistoric animals that once roamed South America during the Ice Age. Millions of years ago, the continent was home to massive ground sloths and other enormous mammals capable of powerful digging. These creatures, some weighing several tons, may have carved large underground shelters to escape predators or harsh weather. In fact, in certain tunnels, researchers have discovered large scratch marks along the walls, marks that resemble claw impressions left by enormous animals. If these marks truly were made by prehistoric creatures, it would suggest that some of the tunnels could be more than 10,000 years old. But even this explanation does not solve every mystery. Some tunnel systems show patterns that seem surprisingly organized. Passageways occasionally intersect at angles that resemble planned layouts rather than random burrowing paths. In a few cases, researchers have reported chambers or widened spaces within the tunnels that look almost like rooms. Natural caves rarely display such consistent shapes in soft soil, and that has led some scientists to wonder whether multiple processes might be involved. Perhaps some tunnels were originally dug by prehistoric animals and later modified by natural erosion. Or perhaps ancient humans discovered these underground passages and adapted them for their own purposes, expanding or reshaping them over time. There's another possibility as well. The geology of the Amazon basin is complex and still poorly understood. Beneath the forest lies a patchwork of ancient rock formations, sediment layers, and underground water systems. Over long periods, shifting groundwater and chemical reactions can sometimes carve unusual cavities within the earth. These natural processes can occasionally produce tunnels or hollow spaces that appear surprisingly symmetrical. But even geologists acknowledge that many of the underground passages discovered in the Amazon remain difficult to fully explain. And the deeper researchers look, the stranger some of the findings become. In certain remote regions, explorers have reported tunnels that extend far beyond the lengths typically associated with animal burrows. Some passages stretch so far into the darkness that their full extent has never been mapped. Others connect to cave systems that descend deeper underground, forming networks that may span large sections of the landscape. Yet because these locations are often extremely difficult to access, few of them have been thoroughly explored. Dense jungle, unstable ground, flooding, and dangerous wildlife all make underground expeditions in the Amazon incredibly challenging. Even reaching the entrances to these tunnels can require days of travel through thick forest. As a result, many of these subterranean structures remain largely unstudied, and that leaves scientists with more questions than answers. Are these tunnels the work of ancient animals long extinct? Are they natural formations shaped by geological forces over thousands of years? Or could some of them represent forgotten engineering projects created by people who once lived deep within the rainforest? At the moment, no single explanation fully accounts for every discovery. But the existence of these tunnels reveals something important about the Amazon. The rainforest is not only hiding secrets beneath its trees, it may also be concealing an entire underground world, one that scientists have only just begun to explore. And if tunnels truly stretch beneath the forest floor, linking distant parts of the landscape, they raise a fascinating possibility. The lost societies that once lived in the Amazon may have understood their environment in ways we are only beginning to rediscover. Because sometimes the greatest mysteries of the rainforest are not hidden among its towering trees. They lie buried beneath the earth itself. For centuries, the Amazon rainforest was seen as a place where large civilizations could never survive. The environment seemed too unforgiving. The soil appeared thin and nutrient-poor, easily washed away by heavy rains. According to traditional thinking, any large population attempting to farm the land would quickly exhaust the soil and be forced to move elsewhere. Because of this belief, historians long assumed that the Amazon had always been home to only small, scattered communities living in balance with the forest. But over the past few decades, a growing body of evidence has begun to challenge that assumption. Hidden beneath the jungle canopy, scientists have discovered signs of something far more complex. Traces of societies that appear to have carefully shaped the landscape around them. One of the most surprising discoveries involves a type of soil that should not naturally exist in the Amazon. In many areas across the basin, archaeologists have found patches of dark, extremely fertile earth known as terra preta, which translates from Portuguese as black earth. Unlike the surrounding soil, which quickly loses nutrients under the region's intense rainfall, terra preta remains rich and productive for hundreds, sometimes even thousands of years. At first, researchers believe this dark soil might be the result of unusual natural conditions. But closer analysis revealed something remarkable. Terra preta is not natural at all. It appears to have been deliberately created by ancient people. Scientists studying samples of the soil have discovered that it contains large amounts of charcoal, broken pottery, plant matter, and organic waste. These ingredients suggest that ancient communities intentionally enriched the soil by mixing burned organic material with everyday refuse. The result was a form of engineered earth capable of supporting long-term agriculture. This discovery changed how researchers understood the Amazon. If ancient people were capable of creating fertile soil in a region where farming was once believed impossible, then large populations might have been able to thrive there, and the evidence suggests they did. Across many parts of the rainforest, archaeologists have uncovered signs of extensive agricultural systems. In areas that today appear to be untouched wilderness, scientists have identified raised fields, irrigation canals, and carefully modified landscapes designed to support crops. In regions that flood during seasonal rains, ancient farmers built elevated farming platforms to protect their harvests. In drier regions, they constructed drainage systems that directed water where it was needed most. These techniques required planning, cooperation, and long-term knowledge of the environment. They also suggest that the people who lived here were not simply surviving in the forest. They were managing it. Another striking clue comes from the patterns of vegetation in certain parts of the Amazon. Researchers studying tree populations have discovered that many areas contain unusually high concentrations of fruit and nut trees useful to humans. These trees are often found clustered near ancient settlement sites. This pattern suggests that earlier inhabitants may have deliberately planted or encouraged the growth of specific species, effectively shaping the forest itself over generations. In other words, parts of the Amazon rainforest may actually be the result of ancient human cultivation. What we see today as wild jungle could, in some areas, be the long-abandoned gardens of forgotten societies. Further evidence comes from the layout of ancient settlements discovered through satellite imaging and LiDAR scans. As researchers map more areas of the rainforest, they continue to uncover networks of interconnected villages, ceremonial centers, and infrastructure. Some settlements appear carefully planned, with central plazas surrounded by residential zones and defensive earthworks. Roads and raised causeways connect these communities, sometimes stretching for kilometers through the forest. Constructing such networks would have required significant labor and coordination. This suggests the existence of organized societies with leadership, shared traditions, and complex social structures. When all these pieces are considered together, engineered soil, large agricultural systems, settlement networks, and monumental earthworks, a new picture begins to emerge. The Amazon may once have been home to millions of people. Some estimates suggest that before the arrival of Europeans, the population of the Amazon basin could have been several times larger than previously believed. But if such societies once existed, a haunting question remains. Why did they disappear? When early European explorers traveled through parts of the Amazon in the 16th century, they reported seeing villages and communities along the riverbanks. Some accounts even describe densely populated regions with thriving trade networks. Yet only a few generations later, many of these settlements were gone. One of the most widely accepted explanations involves disease. When Europeans arrived in the Americas, they unintentionally brought illnesses such as smallpox, measles, and influenza. Indigenous populations had no natural immunity to these diseases, and the results were devastating. Entire communities were wiped out within decades. Because diseases often spread faster than explorers themselves, many regions suffered population collapse before Europeans even reached them directly. If large societies once existed in the Amazon, epidemics may have caused their rapid decline. Without people to maintain farms, roads, and settlements, the rainforest would have quickly reclaimed the land. Fields would have become overgrown. Buildings would collapse. Within a few generations, the jungle would swallow nearly every trace of the civilizations that once lived there. Today, only fragments remain. Patches of black earth, buried structures, and mysterious earthworks hidden beneath the forest canopy. Yet these fragments tell an extraordinary story. They suggest that the Amazon was not always an empty wilderness. Instead, it may have been a vibrant and highly managed landscape shaped by generations of people who understood the rainforest in ways we are only beginning to rediscover. And as archaeologists continue exploring deeper into the jungle, they are realizing something remarkable. The Amazon may not just contain isolated ruins or forgotten villages. It may be hiding the remnants of entire civilizations, societies whose history was almost completely erased by time and forest. But the deeper scientists investigate, the more they discover that some of the rainforest's most mysterious structures may not be buried beneath soil or vegetation. Some may still be standing, hidden deep in the jungle, where almost no one has ever looked. Deep within some of the most remote parts of the Amazon rainforest, explorers have occasionally reported something unexpected rising above the endless sea of trees. Stone, not scattered rocks or natural cliffs, but formations that appear strangely organized. Massive shapes partially buried beneath soil, roots, and vegetation. Some resemble large stepped hills. Others look almost like platforms or pyramids emerging slowly from the jungle floor. For a long time, these reports were treated with skepticism. The Amazon is not known for large stone monuments. Unlike regions such as Central America or the Andes, where ancient civilizations built temples and pyramids from cut stone, the Amazon basin lacks easily accessible building materials like limestone or granite in many areas. Most known indigenous structures in the region were made from wood and earth, materials that decay quickly in the humid climate. Because of this, Archaeologists historically assumed that large stone architecture was unlikely to exist deep in the rainforest, but scattered discoveries have begun to challenge that assumption. In some remote locations, researchers examining satellite images have identified unusual shapes rising through the vegetation, large mounds with flat tops and sides that appear too symmetrical to be natural hills. When sunlight strikes these formations at certain angles, shadows reveal patterns that resemble steps or terraces. From the air, some of these structures look remarkably similar to ancient pyramids. Yet reaching them on the ground is another challenge entirely. The Amazon is one of the most difficult environments on Earth for exploration. Dense vegetation blocks visibility in every direction. Thick roots twist across the forest floor, while vines and undergrowth create a nearly impenetrable barrier between trees. Even traveling a few kilometers through untouched rainforest can take hours. Because of these obstacles, many suspected structures identified in aerial surveys have never been fully examined by archaeologists. Those that have been investigated often reveal something intriguing. In certain cases, researchers have discovered large earthen mounds reinforced with stone layers or packed clay. These structures sometimes rise several meters above the surrounding terrain and feature flattened surfaces that could have supported buildings or ceremonial platforms. Some appear arranged in patterns, suggesting deliberate placement rather than natural formation. In other regions, explorers have reported encountering unusual rock formations partially buried beneath soil and vegetation. While some of these are likely natural outcrops shaped by erosion, others show angles and surfaces that seem unexpectedly precise. The jungle itself complicates interpretation. Over centuries, roots grow through cracks in rock and soil, slowly shifting and breaking apart structures. Fallen trees collapse on the ground and decay, leaving thick layers of organic material behind. Rain washes sediment across the landscape, gradually burying whatever lies beneath. Given enough time, even large stone structures can begin to resemble natural hills. This makes it extremely difficult for archaeologists to determine whether a particular formation is the result of natural geological processes or ancient human construction. In a few locations, however, evidence suggests that some structures may indeed have been shaped by human hands. Researchers studying certain mounds in the Amazon have discovered fragments of pottery, tools, and charcoal buried within the surrounding soil layers. These artifacts indicate that people once lived near or around these formations. In some cases, the mounds appear to have been deliberately built as elevated platforms. Such structures may have served several purposes. They could have supported large communal buildings or temples. They may have been used as ceremonial gathering places or as raised ground safe from seasonal flooding. In regions where the forest floor becomes swampy during heavy rains, building on elevated platforms would have been an effective way to protect settlements. But some of the formations appear larger and more complex than simple habitation mounds. A few researchers have suggested that certain step shapes visible in satellite images could represent remnants of ancient architectural structures, possibly pyramids or terrace monuments similar to those found in other parts of the Americas. If that were true, it would dramatically reshape our understanding of Amazonian civilizations. However, many scientists remain cautious. The rainforest environment makes it extremely difficult to confirm such interpretations. Without extensive excavation and careful analysis, it is easy to mistake natural rock formations or eroded hills for ancient structures. Nature can sometimes produce shapes that appear surprisingly geometric, yet the possibility remains intriguing. Throughout history, many major archaeological discoveries began with small clues, unusual shapes, buried foundations, or structures hidden beneath layers of vegetation. Entire cities have been rediscovered after centuries of being mistaken for natural hills. The jungle's ability to conceal structures makes the Amazon particularly suited for such hidden histories. And the deeper researchers explore the region using modern tools like LiDAR scanning and high-resolution satellite imagery, the more unusual formations they continue to find. Some appear as large terrace platforms. Others resemble step pyramids partially buried beneath forest growth. Whether these structures are truly the remnants of ancient architecture or simply remarkable natural formations remains an open question. But the mystery itself highlights something important about the Amazon. Despite centuries of exploration, much of the rainforest remains poorly understood. Vast areas of dense jungle have never been systematically surveyed. In many places, archaeologists have barely scratched the surface of what may lie hidden beneath layers of soil and vegetation. It is entirely possible that significant archaeological sites still exist deep within the forest, structures waiting quietly beneath the trees, unnoticed for centuries. And if ancient societies once built monumental architecture here, the rainforest may still be hiding the largest pieces of their story. Because sometimes the jungle does not simply bury the past, it protects it, preserving fragments of forgotten civilizations beneath its endless green canopy, waiting for the moment when someone finally looks closely enough to see them. Deep within the Peruvian Amazon, far from major cities and hidden beneath the dense rainforest canopy, there's a river unlike any other on Earth. At first glance, it looks ordinary. It winds through the jungle like countless other Amazonian waterways, surrounded by towering trees and thick vegetation. The air is heavy with humidity, and the sounds of insects and distant birds echo through the forest. But as you approach the river's edge, something unusual becomes clear. Steam rises from the surface of the water. In some places, the river bubbles and churns as if it were a giant pot left boiling over a fire. The heat radiating from it is intense, and the water temperature in certain sections can reach nearly 100 degrees Celsius, close to the boiling point. This river is known locally as Unexplained, which roughly translates to the river that boils with the heat of the sun. For generations, local communities have told stories about this mysterious waterway. According to legend, the river possesses powerful spiritual energy. Some traditions describe it as a sacred place, protected by ancient forces deep within the jungle. But for many years, scientists were unsure whether these stories were exaggerations or misunderstandings. After all, rivers that reach near boiling temperatures are extremely rare. In most parts of the world, water only becomes this hot near active volcanoes or geothermal vents, where underground magma heats groundwater before it rises to the surface. Yet the strange thing about Unexplained is its location. The river flows through a region where there are no active volcanoes nearby. This contradiction puzzled researchers for decades. When scientists first began studying the river more closely, they discovered that the water temperatures vary along its length. In some areas, the water is warm but manageable, but in other sections, it becomes dangerously hot. So hot that small animals that fall into it sometimes cannot escape. There have been reports of birds, reptiles, and amphibians accidentally landing in the river and die within moments from the heat. The water itself can reach temperatures high enough to cause severe burns. This makes Unexplained not only mysterious, but also potentially dangerous. But how could a river in the middle of the rainforest reach such extreme temperatures? One possible explanation lies beneath the Earth's surface. Geologists believe that the river may be heated by a deep network of underground geothermal systems. Rainwater seeps into cracks in the Earth's crust, traveling deep underground where it is heated by geothermal energy before rising back to the surface through fissures. In volcanic regions, this process often creates hot springs, geysers, and geothermal pools. However, the Amazon basin is not typically known for such geothermal activity. That is what makes the boiling river so unusual. Some researchers believe that deep fault lines beneath the region may allow heat from the Earth's interior to travel upward through underground water systems. As the water rises closer to the surface, it carries this heat with it, eventually feeding into the river. This process could explain how the water becomes so hot even without nearby volcanic activity. But understanding the river fully has proven difficult. The Amazon rainforest is an incredibly complex environment, and studying remote locations like Unexplained presents major logistical challenges. Scientists must travel deep into the jungle, often by boat and on foot, carrying specialized equipment through difficult terrain. Even after reaching the river, measuring its temperatures and mapping its geothermal sources requires careful monitoring. Yet, the more researchers study the river, the more fascinating it becomes. In some places, the boiling water creates clouds of steam that rise through the forest canopy. The surrounding vegetation appears adapted to heat, with certain plants thriving along the riverbanks despite the extreme conditions. The ecosystem here is unlike anything found in other parts of the rainforest. It raises intriguing questions about how life adapts to unusual environments. How do certain organisms survive near such hot water? Are there unique microorganisms living within the river itself? Could these organisms reveal new insights about life in extreme environments? Scientists have begun investigating these possibilities, studying bacteria and microbes that thrive in the river's heated waters. Such organisms are known as extremophiles, life forms capable of surviving in conditions that would normally destroy most living things. Discovering extremophiles in the boiling river could have implications far beyond the Amazon. Some researchers believe that studying these organisms may help scientists understand how life might exist in extreme environments elsewhere in the universe, such as beneath the icy surfaces of distant moons or within geothermal systems on other planets. But for now, Shunidempishka remains one of the Amazon's most remarkable natural mysteries. It is a reminder that even in the age of satellites and advanced technology, our planet still holds places that defy easy explanation. Hidden deep in the rainforest, far from modern cities and highways, the river continues to flow just as it has for centuries, its steaming waters winding through the jungle, quietly challenging our understanding of nature. And like many of the Amazon's greatest secrets, it leaves us with a simple but powerful question. If a boiling river can remain hidden in one of the most explored centuries of human history, what other extraordinary phenomena might still exist deep within the rainforest? Because in the Amazon, even the rivers can hold mysteries. The Amazon rainforest is often described as the most biologically diverse place on Earth. Every layer of the forest, from the towering canopy to the dark, humid ground below, is filled with life. Brightly colored birds flash between branches. Insects swarm through the thick air. Beneath the muddy rivers, fish and reptiles glide silently through the water. Yet despite centuries of exploration, scientists still believe that much of the Amazon's wildlife remains undiscovered. Each year, researchers identify hundreds of new species within the rainforest. Some are tiny insects or plants previously overlooked by science. Others are entirely new types of amphibians, reptiles, or mammals. In fact, over the past few decades alone, scientists have documented new species of frogs, monkeys, snakes, and fish living in areas that had already been studied before. This constant stream of discoveries reveals something extraordinary. Even today, in the age of satellites and global mapping, the Amazon still hides living creatures unknown to the scientific world. Part of the reason lies in the sheer scale of the rainforest. The Amazon basin covers millions of square kilometers, much of it nearly impossible to access. Some regions remain so remote that few researchers have ever visited them. Dense vegetation blocks visibility, and rivers can change course during seasonal floods, making travel difficult and unpredictable. In such a vast and complex ecosystem, entire species can remain hidden simply because no one has encountered them yet. But the animals that scientists have already discovered in the Amazon sometimes seem almost unbelievable. Some appear like survivors from prehistoric times. Take, for example, the arapaima, one of the largest freshwater fish in the world. Growing over 3 meters long and weighing hundreds of kilograms, this massive fish glides slowly through the rivers of the Amazon basin. Its armor-like scales resemble those of ancient fish species that lived millions of years ago. The arapaima even breathes air. Unlike most fish, it must rise to the surface regularly to gulp oxygen, a trait that evolved to help it survive in low-oxygen waters. Other Amazonian creatures possess equally strange adaptations. Certain frogs can change color depending on temperature or stress. Some fish generate electric fields to navigate murky rivers. Insects mimic leaves so perfectly that predators cannot distinguish them from the forest floor. And then there are the creatures that live in the darkest parts of the ecosystem. Beneath the muddy rivers, visibility can drop to almost zero. Sunlight barely penetrates the water, and sediments carried by the river turn everything into a swirling cloud of darkness. In this hidden world, animals rely on unusual senses to survive. The electric eel, for example, can generate powerful electrical shocks strong enough to stun prey, or even humans. Using specialized organs, it releases bursts of electricity to navigate its surroundings and detect nearby animals. Some river fish possess whisker-like sensors that allow them to detect vibrations in the water. Others can sense tiny electrical signals produced by the muscles of nearby creatures. These adaptations allow life to flourish even in environments where sight becomes almost useless. Yet despite all the creatures scientists have already documented, researchers believe the Amazon may still hold many more surprises. One reason is that certain habitats within the rainforest remain almost completely unexplored. Deep caves, flooded forests, and isolated river systems can create unique environments where species evolve separately from the rest of the ecosystem. Over thousands of years, animals living in these isolated regions may develop entirely new traits. Some species discovered in the Amazon appear so unusual that scientists initially struggled to classify them. In recent years, researchers exploring remote parts of the rainforest have encountered frogs with translucent skin, insects that resemble pieces of bark, and fish that glide to the water like miniature ghosts. Each discovery reveals just how little we truly know about the life hidden within the jungle. Occasionally, explorers even report sightings of animals that do not match any known species. While many of these reports turn out to be misidentified creatures or exaggerations, some have led scientists to investigate regions where new species were eventually confirmed. The Amazon's immense biodiversity makes such possibilities entirely plausible. In fact, some scientists believe that large animals, possibly even mammals, may still exist in remote regions where human presence is extremely rare. Dense vegetation and limited visibility make it surprisingly easy for animals to remain hidden in the rainforest. Even relatively large species can avoid detection if they inhabit areas far from human activity. This possibility fuels the imagination of both researchers and explorers. Could unknown creatures still roam the deeper parts of the Amazon? While science requires careful evidence before confirming such claims, history shows that nature often holds surprises. Animals once thought to be mythical or extinct have occasionally been rediscovered in remote environments. The rainforest complexity makes it one of the few places on Earth where such discoveries remain possible. And every time scientists venture deeper into the jungle, they encounter new forms of life that challenge their understanding of evolution. Some species possess adaptations unlike anything seen elsewhere on the planet. Others display behaviors that scientists are only beginning to study. Together, they form a living reminder of the Amazon's incredible complexity. Because the rainforest is not just a place where ancient civilizations may have once thrived. It is also one of the last great frontiers for biological discovery. Hidden beneath its towering trees and winding rivers are countless organisms still waiting to be identified. Some may be small and easily overlooked. Others may be far stranger than anything scientists expect to find. And as long as large portions of the Amazon remain unexplored, the possibility remains that entirely new chapters of Earth's natural history are still hidden within its depths, waiting quietly among the shadows of the jungle. For centuries, the Amazon rainforest kept its secrets hidden beneath an almost impenetrable shield of vegetation. The towering trees, tangled vines, and dense undergrowth form a natural barrier that prevented researchers from seeing what lay beneath the jungle canopy. Even when archaeologists suspected that ancient structures might exist somewhere in the forest, confirming those suspicions proved nearly impossible. Walking through the rainforest revealed only fragments, small mounds, scattered artifacts, or subtle changes in terrain. Without a broader view of the landscape, these clues often seemed isolated and incomplete. But in the last few decades, something remarkable has happened. Technology has given scientists the ability to see through the jungle. High-resolution satellite imaging was one of the first tools to reveal hints of hidden structures. From orbit, satellites can capture images of the Earth's surface with incredible precision. When researchers began examining satellite photographs of the Amazon, they noticed patterns that were invisible at ground level. Straight lines cutting through the forest, large geometric shapes buried beneath the vegetation, subtle ridges and embankments forming grids across entire regions. These patterns suggested something extraordinary, that parts of the Amazon landscape had been carefully shaped by human activity long ago. However, even satellite images have limitations. The thick canopy of the rainforest often blocks the view of the ground below. Many structures remain completely hidden beneath layers of leaves and branches. That's where another powerful technology began to transform the search for lost civilizations. LiDAR, short for light detection and ranging, uses laser pulses to map the surface of the Earth in extraordinary detail. When mounted on aircraft or drones, LiDAR systems fire millions of laser beams toward the ground every second. Most of these beams bounce off the treetops, but some slip through tiny gaps in the canopy and reach the forest floor. By measuring how long it takes for each pulse to return, scientists can build a precise three-dimensional map of the terrain beneath the trees. Then, using computer processing, they can digitally remove the vegetation from the data. What remains is a detailed image of the landscape, as if the forests were not there at all. For archaeologists studying the Amazon, the results have been astonishing. When the first LiDAR surveys of certain regions were completed, researchers suddenly saw what had been hidden for centuries. Large networks of ancient structures appeared across the landscape. Massive platforms rose from the ground in geometric patterns. Straight roads stretched for kilometers, connecting settlements across wide distances. Circular plazas and rectangular earthworks formed organized layouts that looked unmistakably human-made. Some settlements appeared carefully planned, with central ceremonial spaces surrounded by clusters of residential areas. Others revealed defensive walls, irrigation systems, and raised agricultural fields. Instead of isolated villages scattered to the forest, the maps revealed something far more complex: entire urban landscapes. In some regions of the southwestern Amazon, LiDAR scans uncovered extensive networks of settlements connected by raised causeways. These roads ran in remarkably straight lines, sometimes crossing wetlands and forests for kilometers at a time. Constructing such infrastructure would have required advanced planning and a coordinated workforce. It suggests the presence of organized societies capable of large-scale engineering. But perhaps the most surprising discovery was the sheer number of structures revealed by these scans. Where researchers once believed there might be a handful of ancient sites, LiDAR revealed hundreds. In certain areas, nearly every square kilometer showed signs of past human activity: mounds, roads, canals, or geometric earthworks hidden beneath the vegetation. These discoveries forced scientists to reconsider one of the most important questions about the Amazon: how many people once lived here? Earlier theories suggested that the rainforest could only support small populations living along major rivers. But the scale of the newly discovered infrastructure suggests something very different. Large sections of the Amazon may once have supported dense populations. Complex societies could have built extensive road networks, developed agricultural systems, and constructed ceremonial centers spread across vast territories. Some researchers now believe that millions of people may have lived throughout the Amazon basin before European contact. If this is true, the rainforest we see today may actually be the overgrown remains of an ancient human landscape. But satellite technology is continuing to push the boundaries of what scientists can discover. Researchers are now using artificial intelligence to analyze satellite images and LiDAR data more efficiently than ever before. AI systems can scan enormous datasets, identifying patterns that human researchers might miss. Subtle shapes hidden beneath vegetation can be detected automatically, allowing archaeologists to locate potential sites across enormous areas of forest. This technology is accelerating discoveries at a remarkable pace. Regions that would have taken decades to explore manually can now be surveyed digitally in a matter of weeks. Each new dataset reveals additional structures, expanding the map of ancient settlements hidden beneath the rainforest. And the discoveries are not limited to one or two regions. Across different parts of the Amazon basin, researchers are finding evidence of similar patterns: settlement networks, geometric earthworks, and modified landscapes that suggest widespread human activity in the distant past. It is becoming increasingly clear that the Amazon was not simply a wilderness untouched by human civilization. Instead, it may have been one of the most complex and densely inhabited regions of the ancient world. But the deeper scientists look, the more questions emerge. Who were the people who built these cities and roads? How did they organize such large societies within the rainforest? And why did their civilizations disappear so completely that their cities were swallowed by the jungle? Technology may be helping scientists uncover the physical remains of these lost societies. But understanding their story will take much longer, because every new discovery seems to reveal an even larger mystery hidden beneath the trees. And as satellites and scanning technologies continue to explore the Amazon from above, one thing is becoming increasingly clear: the rainforest is not just hiding isolated ruins. It may be concealing the remnants of an entire forgotten world. Even after centuries of exploration, the Amazon rainforest remains one of the least understood places on Earth. On maps, it appears as a massive green expanse stretching across South America. Satellites can trace the winding paths of its rivers and outline the boundaries of its forests. Scientists have cataloged thousands of species that live within it. Researchers have uncovered ancient earthworks, hidden settlements, and signs of forgotten civilizations. And yet, despite all this knowledge, the Amazon still holds vast regions that humans have barely explored. Millions of square kilometers of dense rainforest remain difficult to reach, even with modern technology. In many places, the jungle canopy is so thick that sunlight struggles to reach the ground. Beneath those towering trees, the forest floor is a maze of tangled roots, vines, and vegetation. Traveling through such terrain is slow and exhausting. Even today, some regions can only be reached after days of navigating rivers and trekking through dense forest. Equipment must be carried by hand. Weather conditions can change rapidly. Floods, insects, and wildlife add to the challenge. Because of these obstacles, large portions of the Amazon remain largely untouched by scientific study. And that means many of its secrets may still be hidden. Over the past few decades, every new technology used to study the rainforest has revealed something unexpected. Satellite imaging has uncovered geometric shapes carved into the land. LiDAR scanning has revealed entire networks of ancient settlements buried beneath the jungle canopy. Each discovery suggests that the past of the Amazon is far more complex than scientists once believed. But these technologies have only examined small sections of the forest so far. Much of the Amazon has yet to be scanned in detail. This leaves researchers with a fascinating possibility. If large cities and monumental structures have already been discovered in the areas studied so far, what might still be hidden in the regions no one has examined yet? Could there be entire archaeological sites still buried beneath the forest? Ancient roads connecting settlements that have never been mapped? Ceremonial centers, temples, or monuments waiting quietly beneath layers of vegetation and soil? Some archaeologists believe that the discoveries made so far may represent only a small fraction of what once existed across the Amazon basin. Civilizations that thrived here may have built extensive landscapes, systems of farms, villages, roads, and cultural sites that stretched across enormous territories. When these societies disappeared, the rainforest gradually reclaimed everything. Trees grew over abandoned settlements. Roots broke apart walls and foundations. Soil and vegetation buried the remaining structures. Within a few generations, entire cities could vanish beneath the jungle. Over centuries, the forest would erase nearly every visible trace. Yet beneath that green canopy, the past may still remain preserved. Hidden beneath layers of earth and vegetation are fragments of human history waiting to be rediscovered. But the mysteries of the Amazon are not limited to ancient civilizations. The rainforest also remains one of the last great frontiers for biological discovery. Scientists continue to find new species of plants, insects, reptiles, and mammals every year. Many areas have never been surveyed in detail by biologists. It is entirely possible that thousands of species remain unknown to science. Some may be small and difficult to detect. Tiny insects or microorganisms hidden within the forest ecosystem. Others could be larger animals living in remote regions rarely visited by humans. The complexity of the rainforest allows life to evolve in ways that scientists are only beginning to understand. Every expedition into unexplored areas carries the potential for new discoveries, new plants that may hold medicinal properties, new animals with unique adaptations, new ecosystems that reveal how life survives in extreme environments. Even the geology of the Amazon continues to raise questions. Underground tunnels, strange rock formations, unusual rivers, and hidden cave systems hint at processes beneath the surface that researchers have yet to fully explain. The rainforest is a living laboratory, constantly changing and evolving, but it is also a reminder of how much we still do not know about our own planet. In an age when satellites can map the surface of distant worlds and robotic spacecraft explore other planets, it may seem surprising that one of the greatest mysteries lies here on Earth, hidden beneath a canopy of trees. Yet the Amazon continues to challenge our understanding. Every new discovery reshapes the story scientists once believed about this region. What was once thought to be an untouched wilderness may instead be the legacy of ancient societies. What appears to be empty forest may hide traces of human ingenuity thousands of years old. And what seems like familiar nature may still contain species no human has ever seen before. The truth is simple. The Amazon is still revealing its secrets. And the deeper scientists look, the more they realize that we may only be beginning to understand the complexity of this incredible place. Somewhere beneath the endless green canopy, there may be structures that have stood hidden for centuries. Ancient landscapes waiting to be rediscovered. Creatures that have never been documented. And stories of human history that have not yet been told. The rainforest is vast, mysterious, and constantly changing, which leads to one final question. If so many discoveries have already been made in the small parts of the Amazon we have explored, what else is still hidden beneath the jungle?